So Adam, you have a practice of hiring or hooking up with a local when you travel abroad. So let's talk a little bit about that. And we can't forget to mention Tahiti and how you met Hiva. I think in a McDonald's, right?
So I went to French Polynesia and I was traveling around.
So that was when we were still living in Hawaii.
Right, we were living in Hawaii, so it wasn't such a far flight to go to Papeete, Tahiti, and fly there. And I started a trip and I was going around. I was going to call it quits because it's just so expensive. Like all the accommodation and the food is just like, wow, I'm going to have to cut it short and go home. Mm-hmm. So I went back to the capital and I went to a McDonald's and had a Coke. And there were some locals there and I started talking to this Atahiva, and Dimitri was her husband, and her little girl, Nehe Alani, were there. The first thing I asked is like, oh, where's the ATM machine, you know? And he was like, oh, it's over there. And we were talking more and more, and she had learned some English in school. She actually kind of excelled at English in her class in her village that she was at. And the more we talked, she was like, hey, I'll show you around. Like if you're paying for the gas, I'll show you. Like I was like, oh, definitely. And she was busy like Saturday and Sunday, so then I had to wait around for like till like the Monday. Then she was like free. It was like first it was like if I rented the car, so now I was gonna rent the car. Then I was like, oh, don't spend the money. Like then they came up with a car that we could borrow, and I was paying for the gas on that and showed me all around. And yeah, they became really close friends, like family. And they would never accept any money for that. I mean, besides just putting gas in the tank, they never would let me pay for anything.
So kind.
So it's not really like hiring a local guide. They were just like locals that just sort of took care of me. And just amazing. And I went back another time and stayed there for a month in Tahiti.
Right, and I went on one trip as well.
Yeah, you were there too, because Candy speaks some French, speaks more French than me.
Okay. I remember you telling me, though, you had an experience with Hiva where you were just blissed out. You guys, someone took you on a boat to visit an island, and you said it was all just almost surreal.
Right. That was, well, they're all related in Tia, right? So they might be like their cousins, but I believe that was
a small...
Reiho's father, like in a Tiara Ura. Mm-hmm. The father is a fisherman, and he has a boat. So we went down south. There's Tahiti. Nui is big Tahiti, and Tahiti Iti is little Tahiti. Mm-hmm. And there's the Atahiva River, which is what Hiva's named after, this river out in the middle of nowhere. Uh-huh. Yeah, the fisherman like pulled up and he took us on a boat, and it was just like rainbows everywhere and going up the waves. And there's like natives on a piece of wood like surfing, like going by us, like, you know, it was like, and then it was like, you know, like all the mountains like Hawaii and just like waterfalls coming down, and it was just like, yeah, so with the waves and the surfers and the rainbows and the...
Someone feeding you grapes or something?
No, it was Ura, as a little girl, now she's an adult, was just like hand peeling me fruits and like feeding me fruit while I'm on it just felt like a king, yeah. It was just like, and then they look at me and it was just like tears were coming down. I was like, oh, it's the most beautiful day of my life. Yeah. And they like that. So when a lot of locals, they really want you to see how wonderful their country is, and they want you to have these experiences. They wish that people would come there and understand their culture and to see that they have the most beautiful country, and yeah, it like warms their heart, like that somebody, because other people that are staying at the resorts there or whatever, they never see the real part of it. They're just like at the resort and they're on the beach, and then they go home, you know. So right. When someone finally falls to earth, it's really kind of a big thing. And we went on some long hikes in the mountains. We just did like so many things, and they're all dancers. They can all, you know, they're almost like professional level dancers. There's the competitions every year, like in Hawaii, the hula competition. And Dimitri is basically like a professional cliff diver. So everywhere we went, there was a cliff, he'd be like scaling up, just doing like these amazing like backflips down like a waterfall into like, it would just scare me. I was like, whoa, he's gonna, you know, how do you do that? Like, but he was born doing it. And Dimitri's like almost like a professional surfer. Both of them, Hiva and Dimitri's,
Athletes.
really great athletes and volleyball players. Yeah.
Right.
They took me spear fishing in the ocean.
I remember we went to church with them, and Hiva's grandmother was wearing, it wasn't a lei, because I was accustomed to flower leis in Hawaii. She had made a lei that was a crown. And all I did was commented to her that that lei looked so beautiful. And of course she took it off and gave it to me. It smelled so beautiful. And I wore that flower crown all day, and it was just, it touched me so much. And how sweet of her, you just say, oh, that's lovely. And of course, it's given to you immediately. That was really.
And then she measured us, and then she made like.
And then she made clothes for us.
Yeah, she made the traditional clothes for us, like these red and white outfits that were really awesome.
That was really awesome.
And they're like family now. Yeah. Atahiva and Dimitri and Nehealani and Reho and Ura and Grandma, all of them. Yeah, we miss them.
Yes. Oh, one other thing. While you were in Kenya with Jonathan, you said that a cattle rancher went with you on one of the trips, and he was your guard. He just had a spear?
Right.
How does that
So Jonathan
work?
was my guide, and then one day, it was like a break day where we were going to see tribal people. We went to the different villages to get the cultural experience of the tribes. I have a question. Have you ever had to stop an animal using the spear? You have stopped an animal using that spear to protect your cows. Yeah. Wow, that's really interesting. You see this even more in Ethiopia as well. There's even more primitive. Like when you're growing up, when you're a little boy, 5, 6 years old, they hand you like, here's a stick and here's a rock. Like you're taking care of the cattle, like not like so. And if a big cat comes to you, they like throw a rock at it, like, and they're responsible for like, you know. I think they start them off with like the chickens and then the goats, and then they move up to the cattle, and there's just these little boys, and that's part of like you have to go through that as a little boy for several years. You protect the cattle as like a shepherd, you know, with the stick or whatever it is. They have the blanket over themselves and walking out. So I'm sure this guy was like that.
He grew up.
They had cattle, yeah, and now he was like an adult, and he's Maasai warrior, and they have this big metal spear. So supposedly, like if any animal attacks like their cattle, like they ward it off with the spear. The spear to protect. Just looking at his spear. So we went walking around Masai Mara, where there's like the wild, like all these things where you see like these cats attacking people.
And you were walking?
And they can fend. Yeah, we just walked out, and there's like giraffes and the zebra going by, and it's like the wild, you know. And I think like the lions, they make sure the lions stay afraid of them too. It's like the thing, they keep the fear going, and like they don't come around in the first place. Like a tiger sees a Maasai warrior and they don't want to be around.
Really?
They keep them afraid. They're not allowed to kill the lions anymore either. I mean, in the past, many years ago, I think they had to kill a lion to become a man or whatever. Like, but definitely they could keep off, the wild animals. Or they said they could, like. I believe it, and I trusted them. Yeah, and we were walking around without the protection of the big vehicle and got really close to the animals. Yeah, it was really amazing.
That is really trusting the locals and doing things their way. That's really cool.
And I asked him, I was like, you've used that spear to like fight off animals? Like, yep.
Wow.
I was like, okay.
Okay, so sometimes you stay at hostels and sometimes you stay at nicer hotels.
Yes.
And you've found guides at both locations. Is it better to find a guide when you're staying at a nicer hotel or better when you're staying at a hostel, or does it not matter?
Right. So like in America, in a nicer hotel, you might have a concierge that organizes tours for you and things. In developing countries, they also have that, or just the bellhop or the receptionist is going to have the knowledge of things you can do and organize tours for you. So if you're at the cheaper hostel, you're going to get a better price on these tours or for the local guides than you will if you're at the Sheraton or the Hilton, like the price goes up. It's the same person, but then they just think like, this person's got bags of money, and it costs a lot more. So in some ways, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're staying at the really nice hotel, because you're not going to get a good price unless you walk out of the hotel and don't tell them where you're staying and don't have them pick you up at that hotel.
And go down to the hostel or go downtown and
Right.
meet somebody in a different location.
Right, or you leave your hotel and go to the concierge at the hostel. Like they'll probably let you sit down and organize your stuff out of there in the first place, because you're never going to get the good deal out of the big hotels. Yeah, you're not going to be able to haggle it, because they'll be like, hey, you're at the most expensive hotel in our country. Like, you know.
You can try, but it's not gonna. It's less believable when you say you
it's like,
can't
no way.
afford it.
Right. So yeah, you're better negotiating from that hostel or whatever poorest part of the shanty town you can go to. I mean, you don't want to lie and say you're staying somewhere you're not staying. You know, I try to be honest, but yeah, it's all part of the negotiation part.
Now, something else is when you're with the locals, you can also taste more of what they eat, not just where the package tour is going to take everybody to a nice restaurant for lunch, but where you can go to the local hangout with them and eat. I know you went for a lot of meals with Lalo in Ethiopia, and you were eating a lot of what is it?
Tibs and teff. Yeah, I love that.
What is that?
It's this like a fried meat. Yeah. Eating raw liver, raw goat liver, raw tripe, raw meat. It's good. They have like goat or beef and stuff, like different kinds of
You really
animals.
did.
Oh man, with the mustard. Oh yeah, it was.
You like the Tibs and Tev.
Yeah, they have that injera bread, which is that spongy bread, and you can pick up a piece of meat and you dip it in the sauce, and there's different kinds of sauce. And I realized they had like a spicy mustard, which was kind of pretty cool. It's almost like sometimes it's like bar food. It's like cheap food, but it's just lots of meat. And then I even wanted that for breakfast. Like I'd have Ethiopian coffee is like the best in the world.
Really?
And I just wanted meat. But then after like many, many days, it's like I need vegetables. Like, you know. Yeah, I was going every day with just eating meat and injera. And I was like, I need to get a piece of fruits or some vegetables or something.
But you had the flexibility because both you and Levy were enjoying the Tibs
Yeah,
and
we
Tev.
liked the Tibs and Tev. And he liked that too, because it probably wasn't the most expensive thing. And like everything was coming out of like the $100 I was paying him for a day, so if all I wanted was Tibs and Tev, you know.
And did you also end up going to some bar where you heard that song that you love?
Yeah, Dishdagina. Yeah, Gishgadina, yeah.
Dancing to Dishdagina?
Yeah, it was a sports bar. So what was interesting with that bar, up front of the bar was the cattle that they were gonna it was like tied up in front of the place.
Wow.
And then they kind of let it away with the thing, and I was like, I could have just filmed them butchering it. I think I might have, no, maybe not in that situation, but in other ones I did, yeah. It's just like fresh. Maybe that's like their advertisement, the bull's tied up in front, like that's what you're gonna eat, you know?
Gosh.
And then they just slit its throat and butcher it, and then they fry it up and feed it to you.
Then you get your Tibs and Tev. You saw a coffee ceremony, I know.
Right, they have the traditional
Ethiopia.
coffee ceremony in Ethiopia.
Was it better than Colombia? Colombia had awesome coffee. Colombian coffee is so good.
It's a different bean. You know, the Colombian beans are one thing, and
Really?
the Ethiopian beans are there's many different kinds of Ethiopian beans, there's many kinds of Colombian beans, so we like the very smooth Colombian coffee, and there's some different kinds. In Ethiopia, there's some stronger coffees, like I can't even remember all the names of the coffee. And then there's the salt coffee. There's like all the strange kinds of
Salt coffee.
yeah. There's salt coffee in
Is
Ethiopia.
that the Civet cap coffee? Was that in Ethiopia?
That's Indonesia.
That's Indonesia.
Right. In Indonesia, there's a civet cat that eats the coffee bean and it passes through its digestive tract and out the other end, and that's what and then you're drinking that coffee that's been passed through a cat, and that's expensive for maybe the digestive juices that make it better.
Right. Or different. or something.
So I tried that Civet coffee. And on my return, when I was putting video of myself drinking it, then I was told that it's not very politically correct to drink that. I mean, it's
That's right.
because they're saying like they don't treat those cats very well, like it's in a cage or whatever. I tend to agree that I didn't know. But on the other hand, everything in the third world countries like that, their animals might not, like here in America, like the animals are like children to us, you know? So like, I don't know, like the people don't even have it very well. So that if a cat doesn't have a very good, like either do the people. So I don't know, like I'm thinking like, the living conditions for the human being in that country aren't so great. So it's a different set of standards with the cat that eats the coffee or whatever. I don't know. So I take it with a grain of salt when they say that. Yeah, I'm sure the cat has a worse life in Indonesia than it would living in luxury in the United States, but so do the people, than
Right.
the people in America have it easier than people do in a third world developing country. So,
Right.
but yeah, I was kind of chastised for drinking that coffee.
So another question I wanted to ask you is, you already referenced one or two times you've hired local guides where it's been a little rough.
Yes.
So there was the one with that guy in the Amazon.
Yeah,
and that was a little
Kike,
rough.
and yeah, the Amazon of Colombia, that went really bad, and I felt he was mistreating. Then he sub-hired a native Huitoto Indian
And he was
who was
nice.
kind of like doing all the work. What do I have to hire him for?
Right.
He just made the guy wait on us all the time. So that kind of stunk because, like I was saying, you have like different tiers of guys. I have this guy who was a Spaniard living in Colombia, and then he hired another guy, and then he was doing nothing. Like the native guy was doing everything, for the whole 9 days. We're supposed to be traipsing through the jungle or whatever. So that kind of wasn't going for it after a while.
Right.
So I have some footage of I shot caiman or some kind of gator, and then that guy jumps in at night. He jumps in the water and he swims after to retrieve what he
native.
shot. Yeah, it's like whoa! I wouldn't jump in the Amazon River full of piranhas and obviously there's other gators because we just shot a gator, but
Wow.
how they do it, yeah, I don't know. It's pretty remarkable.
So even though you have had a few experiences with local guides that haven't worked out, I really liked what you said about taking things and slowly and doing one little thing, like hiring them for just one day trip and seeing how it goes.
Right. Yeah, luckily I have more time to be out in the country. I know some people in America, they just have a 1 week vacation, and then maybe you would pay more to do a lot crammed into that short period of time. Like you have 1 week or 2 weeks. Luckily I can be gone a month, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months. So then if I meet some local, I might hire them to do a tour for the day and see how it works out. And, if we get along and it goes really well, then hey, I was thinking of going on this long trek in your mountains there. How about we do that? And then I start talking, are you free? What would that cost? So then it goes from there. Instead of hiring a person that you don't know in the first place to do 3 weeks of something with you, because then you're stuck with that person. If you give them all the money, or don't give them all the money, give them give them a down payment, some of it up front and what you need per every day, and then at the end you'll get the rest of it if it all goes well, so that you can get out. Yeah, don't give them all the money, and then because you're not going to get it back.
Right.
If it doesn't go well, or you don't like the person, or you're not getting along with them, or they're incompetent, or they're a criminal.
So there are ways to do this and to check things out and see how you like the tour, the tour guide. And if you don't like it, don't hire them. And if you do like it, then go ahead and hire them. You're not stuck with just doing package tours. That's not the only option.
Thanks for watching.